No species should recover this fast. It's physically impossible. The words echoed through the high-ceilinged chamber, bouncing off walls made of shimmering, iridescent metal. Zoroth, the lead xenobiologist of the Interstellar Academy of Advanced Life Studies, glared at the holographic display of a human anatomy scan. Around him, a group of junior alien biologists, their translucent limbs flickering with nervous light, whispered to each other in clicks and hums. The classroom was unusual not just in its design, but in the subject matter. Most alien biology classes studied creatures with predictable regenerative cycles, slow, methodical, and mathematically consistent. They prided themselves on their ability to predict how long it would take a tissue to repair, a limb to regrow, or a cell to divide. But humans had defied every textbook, every simulation, every ancient record the Academy had ever collected. Today's lesson was meant to reinforce what Zoroth had been teaching for decades. Human beings were biologically fragile. Their skin tore easily, their bones fractured with shocking frequency, and their internal organs were alarmingly vulnerable to infection. In other words, humans were, according to alien logic, among the most inefficiently designed species in the known galaxy. The young aliens gathered around a central holotable, each holding a slim, crystalline stylus. On the table floated a 3D representation of a human body. The model flickered as the simulation ran. A deep cut appeared on the forearm. The wound gaped open, surrounded by irritated reddened tissue. Gasps rippled through the class as they observed. "Note the inflammatory response," Zoroth said, his voice reverberating unnaturally, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "See how the human body prioritizes clotting first, then slowly begins cellular repair. In our controlled observations, this process spans hours, even days. No known life form can just heal overnight." A young cadet, her epidermis pulsing with anxious teal light, leaned forward. "But why do humans survive so often? Their systems seem inefficient, yet resilient. Why do they continue to thrive despite these obvious flaws?" Zoroth's multiple eyes narrowed. "Resilience is not speed, cadet. Resilience is a statistical anomaly. Humans are lucky. Luck, not biology, allows them to survive." As the lecture continued, an unexpected notification blinked on the holodisplay. An incoming field report from a remote research station on Earth. Zoroth raised a segmented arm, gesturing for silence. The message was brief. A human volunteer had accidentally received a deep laceration during an experiment. Wound condition, severe. Expected healing time, 72 hours minimum. "And what makes this remarkable?" one cadet asked, already sensing the tension in the room. Zoroth's lips curled into a wry expression. "Observe, document. But do not expect miracles. Humans do not perform miracles." The cadets watched intently as the simulation fast-forwarded to the next morning. What appeared on the display made the chamber fall silent. The gaping wound was gone, completely. Not a scar, not even a hint of inflammation. The skin was smooth, flawless, intact, as though nothing had ever happened. The human subject's body had healed overnight. Zoroth's eyes, usually so sharp and unflinching, widened slightly. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible," he whispered. The cadets exchanged stunned glances, their nervous hums growing louder. What they had thought was impossible had just been proven real. Zoroth leaned closer to the holotable. "Prepare notes. Record every detail. This changes everything we know about human biology." A young cadet tilted her head. "Sir, do you think it's safe to say humans might be extraordinary?" Zoroth's gaze returned to the flickering light of the healed human arm. He said nothing for a moment. Then, in a voice that trembled with barely concealed awe, "Extraordinary is one word. Terrifying might be another." The classroom had emptied, yet Zoroth remained, staring at the holographic human arm, now replaying the healing process in slow motion. The cadets had departed, their whispers still echoing down the corridors like faint electric pulses. For Zoroth, this event was more than a mere anomaly. It was a challenge to every principle he had dedicated his life to mastering. By standard alien biological theory, tissue regeneration followed predictable timelines dictated by cellular energy quotas, enzyme cycles, and molecular repair protocols. Humans should not heal this quickly, not overnight, and yet, the data refused to lie. The wound had closed flawlessly, leaving not even a trace of trauma. Zoroth activated a personal recording module. The holographic display flickered to a higher resolution mode, highlighting every layer of skin, every microvascular junction, every collagen fiber. He zoomed into the wound site. There was no sign of infection, no scarring, no residual inflammation. It was as if the human body had anticipated the injury and preemptively prepared for repair. Prepare a field mission, Zoroth murmured to himself. We need the human in person. Observational data alone is insufficient. I must see this process firsthand. Weeks passed as Zoroth assembled a specialized team. The cadets, once skeptical, were now eager participants, their curiosity fueled by the impossible. The team departed aboard a sleek, silver vessel, leaving the academy suspended in a quiet anticipation. Arriving on Earth was an exercise in alien subtlety. The team landed far from populated zones, in a lush, temperate forest where the human subject had been temporarily residing for monitoring. To Zoroth's surprise, the human, tall, wiry, and entirely unremarkable by alien standards, was already tending to a minor scrape on his own hand. The cadet's eyes widened. The man's skin seemed to hum faintly under the sunlight. Begin observation, Zoroth commanded. Over the next few days, the aliens meticulously documented every meal, every movement, every minor cut or bruise. The human's behavior was banal. He ate regular meals, slept normal hours, and conversed casually with others in a language that was cumbersome for the aliens to comprehend. Yet every tiny injury, paper cuts, scraped knees, even bruises from tripping over roots, disappeared astonishingly fast. The cadets, whose minds had been trained to calculate and predict, began to feel something unfamiliar. They argued in soft clicks and hums about cellular energy rates, metabolic efficiency, and even the possibility of alien miscalculation. But Zoroth's gaze never wavered from the subject. He was obsessed, recording every heartbeat, every synaptic impulse, every micro-reaction of the human immune system. Then came the day when the human injured himself in a manner so severe that the cadets expected to fillet a deep gash on the forearm from a sharp rock. The aliens watched as he winced, applied a basic compress, and slept. By dawn the wound had completely closed. The cadets were speechless. Zoroth felt a chill that was not entirely physical. This is not luck, he said quietly, pacing. This is advanced biology, beyond anything we have catalogued. A cadet, her teal-hued skin dim with fear and fascination, whispered, Sir, what if humans are not just resilient? What if they are evolving faster than we can measure? Zoroth stopped, eyes narrowing. Evolving? No. This is something else. Something dangerous. If humans can repair themselves at this rate, we may have underestimated them entirely. That night, Zoroth lay in his quarters, unable to sleep. He replayed the healing sequences in his mind, imagining every possible cellular mechanism. None of them fit. Humanity, he realized, was a mystery that could not be solved by observation alone, and some mysteries, he feared, might be more threatening than enlightening. The following morning, Zoroth gathered his cadets around the human once more. The subject was cheerful, entirely unaware of the storm of alien scrutiny he was under. The cadets, still shaken from the previous day's impossible healing, were practically vibrating with curiosity. Today, Zoroth announced, his voice carrying an unusual tension, we test boundaries. The cadets blinked in unison, testing boundaries. None of them had ever seen their instructor show so much audacity. Zoroth explained the experiment. The human would ingest a small quantity of a food known to challenge the digestive and neurological systems. Extremely spicy peppers. Far beyond what the human body should safely tolerate. The cadets murmured amongst themselves. Capsaicin, equivalent to volcanic levels, scientifically known to induce severe pain, tissue stress, and occasionally shock. The human merely smiled. I've had spicier, he said casually, breaking a piece of the lava-reed pepper. The cadets watched in disbelief as he chewed deliberately, eyes widening for only a brief moment, then returning to normal. Almost immediately, his lips tingled, his throat burned, and sweat formed on his brow. The cadets' datapads were going wild. Heart rate, salivation, neurochemical activity all off the charts. Zoroth leaned closer, his multiple eyes narrowing. Observe the systemic stress. In any other species, this would induce inflammation, pain-induced shock, or even cellular damage. Humans should logically be incapacitated. But the human did not falter. The spice hit his stomach, triggered nerve endings, and yet, remarkably, he continued eating. The cadets' whispers turned to audible gasps. The human's digestive system absorbed the compounds, neutralized the toxins, and emitted endorphins at a rate no alien enzyme could match. By the time the meal was finished, the human's body had not only endured the ordeal but appeared almost revitalized, his energy level spiking noticeably. The cadets recorded data furiously, unable to comprehend the contradiction. Extreme stress met with extreme resilience. What is this? A cadet asked in disbelief. How can a single organism process toxins, nerve pain, and tissue irritation, and remain unscathed? Zoroth's voice was low, almost reverent. It is the human body's absurdity. Every system is overcompensating for its apparent weaknesses. Repair mechanisms that should take days are compressed into hours, sometimes minutes. Their resilience is simultaneous with fragility. It defies every known biological law. The cadets were struggling to reconcile the data. Every known principle of regenerative biology had been shattered. And then came the unexpected. The human casually brushed a small scratch on his forearm, inflicted by the pepper seeds. In less than an hour, it vanished, smooth skin replacing the cut entirely. Zoroth's mind raced. This is not just healing. This is preemptive adaptation. The body anticipates damage and corrects it faster than our calculations can predict. Humanity is evolutionary chaos manifested in flesh. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. What they had assumed were limitations, slow healing, vulnerability to toxins, dietary weaknesses were, in fact, camouflage for an extraordinary capacity to endure and repair. One cadet, pale with awe, whispered, "Sir, if humans can withstand fire and heal overnight, what else can they endure?" Zoroth did not answer immediately. He simply stared at the human, who was now wiping sweat from his brow with casual ease, oblivious to the revolution his physiology had just ignited in the minds of the alien scientists. A chill ran through Zoroth's spine. This was no longer an academic exercise. The implications were staggering. If the human body could operate at such extremes without collapse, then every assumption the Interstellar Academy had ever made about life's limitations was obsolete. And deep inside, Zoroth felt it, a mix of exhilaration and dread. Humanity was not only incomprehensible, it was dangerous. As the days passed, the cadets became more than just observers. They were participants in the human's everyday life. They watched as he interacted with his environment, performing simple tasks with an ease that belied the alien expectation of fragility. Every minor cut, every scrape from fallen branches or tools, vanished within hours. The cadet's initial awe had begun to mix with a creeping unease. "What are we missing?" whispered one cadet, her teal-hued skin flickering with nervous light. "We've measured, recorded, and analyzed. Yet we cannot predict anything about this species." Zoroth, pacing near the holographic monitors, was silent. He too had begun to feel it's a subtle shift in the human's presence. Not just a biological marvel, but something deeper. The human experienced pain, fear, and discomfort in ways that were foreign to the aliens. When the human stubbed his toe or cut his hand, there was brief grimace, a flicker of vocalization, but the recovery was instantaneous. It was as though the body endured trauma while the mind registered it only minimally, never letting it interfere with daily activity. To the aliens, this was alarming. In their experience, pain, injury, and healing were inseparable. Suffering could not be bypassed. Every physical recovery demanded psychological and systemic energy. Humans had found a loophole. Then came the incident that changed everything. During a routine walk through the forest, the human accidentally triggered a small, concealed trap left by previous researchers. A sharp steel wire sliced across his forearm. The cadets froze, their instincts screaming danger. The wound was deep, bleeding heavily. The human's lips parted, a small hiss escaping as he instinctively applied pressure. The cadets expected panic, collapse, systemic shock, but none came. They watched, spellbound, as within minutes the blood ceased, tissue knit together, and skin smoothed over the injury, leaving no trace. "Impossible," one cadet breathed. But it was not just the healing that shocked them, it was his attitude. The human seemed entirely untroubled, almost cheerful, as if the event were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. His eyes, bright with life, met theirs, and for a moment, the cadets experienced something they could not quantify: empathy. In that gaze, the aliens sensed an entire network of resilience that was as much psychological as biological. Humans did not merely survive, they adapted emotionally, processing fear, pain, and uncertainty without succumbing. The cadets, used to cold calculation and predictable reactions, felt unease creeping in. Zoroth finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "Cadets, note the psychological component. The human's healing is physical, yes, but there is also a remarkable cognitive resilience. Pain and injury are transient, the body recovers, the mind continues. This is a synergy we cannot yet model." One cadet tilted her head, voice trembling. "Sir, if this is true, if humans can heal both body and mind so efficiently, what does that make them?" Zoroth's gaze lingered on the human, now smiling faintly and dusting off his hands. He did not answer immediately. Deep inside, he realized that the question was no longer purely academic. The implications of such a species unpredictable, resilient, adaptive were staggering. Humanity was no longer just a subject to study, it was a force the aliens could neither predict nor control. As night fell over the forest, the cadets retreated to their quarters, whispering nervously about the events of the day. Zoroth remained outside, staring at the human figure illuminated by the dim moonlight. "They think we are the masters of biology," he murmured to himself, "but perhaps we have just glimpsed the first chapter of a story we cannot comprehend, and cannot contain." The following morning Zoroth called his cadets together for a debriefing, unlike any before. The human subject had spent the night in a nearby village, blending seamlessly among locals, performing mundane tasks as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But for the aliens, every trivial action became a source of fascination and mounting concern. Zoroth projected the human's biological data across the holodisplay. Every metric was within human norms, yet the cadets could see anomalies. Cellular repair rates that defied expected energy expenditure. Metabolic responses that contradicted fundamental thermodynamic principles, and an immune system capable of instant adaptation to environmental toxins. "This is what we call a paradox," Zoroth explained, pacing slowly in front of the group. "The human body operates beyond predicted limits. It surpasses efficiency without apparent cost. Every time we calculate a maximum threshold, the species exceeds it, and it does so consistently." A young cadet, his translucent limbs pulsing nervously, raised a question. "Sir, if they can endure every known stressor, is there anything that can stop them?" Zoroth paused. He had considered this repeatedly, yet each scenario he imagined collapsed under the sheer unpredictability of human biology. "I do not know," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps nothing, perhaps only extreme conditions beyond our current understanding." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. For years they had studied species across countless worlds, catalogued every regenerative pattern, every survival threshold, every systemic limitation, and yet, here was a species that rendered all their knowledge obsolete. To better understand, Zoroth devised a controlled challenge. The human would be exposed to a simulated injury protocol designed to stress every major bodily system: neural, muscular, vascular, and cellular. The cadets watched intently, instruments recording every heartbeat, every microfluctuation of enzyme activity, every trace of chemical imbalance. The human endured every stage without faltering. Minor injuries were absorbed, repaired, and rendered irrelevant. Extreme fatigue induced by prolonged exertion dissipated as though the body had anticipated it. Even cognitive tasks, designed to provoke stress, were completed with calm efficiency. As the cadets observed, something remarkable occurred. A small cut appeared on the human's palm, inflicted inadvertently by a piece of lab equipment. Within a single cycle of sleep, the wound disappeared entirely. Not only had the body repaired itself physically, but Zoroth noted the absence of residual stress markers in the neural scans. The human had healed without internal disturbance. One cadet whispered, "Sir, this is beyond biology. This is beyond biology. This is magic." Zoroth shook his head, though the word lingered in his mind. Not magic, adaptation, but at a scale we cannot quantify. The human organism is unpredictable, efficient beyond theory, resilient beyond imagination. This is the ultimate paradox of life. The realization weighed heavily upon them. For the first time, the aliens understood that their assumptions about limits, about survival, about evolution, were incomplete. Humanity was not just another subject for observation, it was a revelation, a biological anomaly with implications they could barely comprehend. Zoroth's eyes lingered on the human as he returned to his simple tasks, oblivious to the revolution his mere existence had sparked. For Zoroth, there was now a lingering fear. If humans could operate beyond all known thresholds, what else were they capable of? And what consequences would arise from a species so astonishingly, dangerously resilient? The cadets left the chamber in quiet contemplation, each struggling with the uncomfortable truth. They were witnessing not just extraordinary biology, but a challenge to the very foundations of their scientific understanding. Zoroth remained behind, staring at the now empty hotla table. The words he whispered to himself carried a weight that chilled even his advanced physiology. Perhaps we were never meant to understand them, but we are meant to watch. The days that followed were a blur of observation, analysis, and quiet, creeping unease. Zoroth and his cadets had documented every aspect of the human's physiology, every minor injury, every response to environmental stress. Yet, no matter how meticulous their measurements, the data refused to form a coherent pattern. Humanity remained an enigma, a puzzle whose pieces never quite fit together. The human went about his life with the same calm, cheerful demeanor. He laughed, he cooked, he explored the forest, he interacted with villagers, completely unaware that he was the subject of an interstellar study. For the aliens, each mundane act became a source of revelation. How could a species so seemingly fragile possess such resilience, such adaptive power, and such seamless integration of mind and body? Zorath convened his cadets for one final session in the field lab. The holodisplay showed a compilation of all the experiments, all the injuries, all the recovery sequences. The wound from weeks ago, the deep cut that had closed overnight, replayed in slow motion, layer by layer, cell by cell. The cadets were silent, some humming nervously, others simply staring at the projection. No one spoke. For the first time, the classroom of curious minds was gripped not by curiosity alone, but by awed by fear. Zorath finally broke the silence. We came here to study biology, to understand regeneration, to catalog resilience. What we have witnessed is beyond cataloging, it is beyond prediction. Humans do not merely heal, they defy the logic of life itself. A young cadet, her skin flickering pale, asked quietly, "Sir, if they are capable of this, what does that make us?" Zorath did not answer immediately. His gaze lingered on the forest beyond, where the human had disappeared among the trees, moving with effortless grace. "It makes us observers," he said at last, voice tinged with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "We are witnesses to something that may never be fully understood, something that cannot be contained by our theories, our models, our understanding." For a moment, the cadets felt the weight of it. Humanity was not merely resilient, humanity was unpredictable, astonishing, and terrifyingly efficient. Every wound healed too quickly, every stress absorbed without collapse, every challenge met with an adaptability that left the alien's mind spinning. And then, as night fell over the forest, the human looked back over his shoulder, smiled faintly, and continued walking. The cadets shivered. In that smile, there was something more than biology. There was a spark of consciousness, of ingenuity, of potential that no alien measurement could ever capture. Zorath whispered into the quiet lab, almost to himself. "We thought we understood life. We thought we knew limits, but perhaps humans were never meant to be understood, only observed and respected." The cadets left the lab, each carrying a profound, unshakable realization. Humanity was more than a species. It was an anomaly, a living contradiction, and a force that even the most advanced aliens could not fully comprehend. And in the dark silence that followed, Zorath allowed himself a rare, cautious hope. If humans could endure, adapt, and heal in ways they could not predict, perhaps there was a lesson here for all life. Perhaps the universe itself had written resilience in the most unexpected places, and sometimes it came in the form of flesh and blood. Utterly absurd, utterly human, and utterly unstoppable. The forest lay quiet, the stars blinked overhead, and somewhere a human laughed, completely unaware that he had just rewritten the rules of biology for an entire interstellar academy.